GC co-creators, Lilou here on the GC Living Tour. I'm in San Diego, beautiful San Diego, amazing, sunny, warm. Actually, it's quite warm. Thank you for accepting to do this interview, Blaine.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
This is quite a different conversation than the one I usually have, though I just recently interviewed Foster Gamble and we went into the things that are going on in the economy and with corporation and banks, and we did a little bit of a reality check. But I know that you're the president and CEO of Avatar Resources, so cool name, first of all. And then I'm thrilled to have this conversation around compassionate capitalism. I mean, what is that about?
Well, I mean, if you just think of the word compassion, first of all, it literally means to be with suffering. Now, the word suffering is a fascinating word, because if I'm going to be passionate about something, I have to be willing to suffer for it. And literally, the word passion comes from an ancient Greek word pastos, which means to suffer. To suffer, if you look at the dictionary definition, pain is a part of that, but it's not the only definition. And a lot of people infer that pain automatically comes with suffering. One of the definitions of suffer means to feel keenly, to feel alive, to feel most alive. And it's that point of feeling most alive that I think capitalism or business has the greatest leverage. And that, for me, compassionate capitalism is about finding ways to meet people at that point where they are potentially most alive. And in my experience in working with businesses, almost every business on the planet is toxic to the human spirit in some way, shape, or form. And primarily because we squash the dreams out of people.
Yeah, and there's not many emotions too.
There's not business. Emotion is something to be taken out of business. So, in part, I mean, it's a broad topic, but for me, compassionate capitalism is about allowing the human spirit to thrive in all of its manifest forms. In an organization, and at the point that organizations actually and businesses actually touch the consumer or their customer base or whomever it may be. And that's not just business organizations, government organizations, NGOs, all of anything is an organization.
Yeah.
One of the ways that we define an organization, and it's pretty simple, it's just a collection of people that are in relationship. That's all an organization is. And if
good or bad relationships.
Good or bad relationships.
There's a lot of tensions inside.
A lot of tension. And if the relationships are working well, the organization has typically got a fairly good shot at being successful. We don't teach people how to work relationships well. We don't teach people how to create relationships. We don't teach them how to sustain working relationships over time, particularly in an organization. And just to expand that thought, when I'm talking about a relationship, I'm not just talking about the interpersonal relationship. I have a relationship with vision. I have a relationship with work process. I have relationship with anything that I encounter in an organization. And in my personal dreams, I have a relationship with those. Do my dreams have an opportunity to come alive when I'm working? Those sorts of things all come into play. So compassionate capitalism is about bringing dreams to life.
Yeah, so what is the impact of that on society? Can that really work on in a large scale?
Yeah, I mean, Zappos is a great example of that in one case. A friend of mine, Jim Selman, said the other day that when paradigms collide, when two different paradigms or belief systems collide, the paradigm that has the capacity to absorb the other paradigm is the one that will dominate and actually transcend. Love is essentially what I'm talking about. Bringing the capacity to love into business, and I mean love in the broadest sense. Love is a paradigm that is an all-encompassing paradigm. It drives out fear. Jerry Jampolsky years ago said that love is the absence of fear. Yeah. And when we look at compassionate capitalism, it is capitalism based on love, not of money, not of profit, love of the human spirit. And that is a significant shift in the way business is conducted. The business of business is not to make money. The business of business is to ennoble life. That's the business of business. And business today is falling far short of that aspiration.
Yeah, it seems like it's all driven by profits and outsourcing or going out to other countries and making young little kids work. I mean, it seems like
quarterly
the bottom
results,
line.
Yeah, bottom line quarterly results. There's fear throughout the system. The board is afraid of the shareholders' response. The shareholders are afraid of losing their investments. The CEO is afraid of the board. The directors are, I mean, so fear just cascades down through the organization, down to the consumer being afraid of, am I going to get taken here? So when we start looking at shifting the idea of what business is about, it's about uplifting the spirit in all of its manifest forms. The game changes a bit.
Yeah.
It changes significantly, not just a bit.
We hear the term very often in business now, the co-creation, to co-create. What does that mean for you? Because actually I start all my videos with hello my beautiful co-creators, and somewhat I feel like we're all co-creators, but I wonder in a business sense, because we use more that term right now in business, no? And it's not yet done for, I believe that that's a transformational aspect for individuals, seeing life that way. What is your take on it?
Co-creation is, I mean, you look around nature co-creates. And, you know, there's a metaphor that's been around for years about it's a jungle out there, survival of the fittest. If you've ever been in a jungle, it is a co-created biosphere. It's lush, it's rich. Now, are there predators? Of course they are, but they aren't malicious predators. The predation that takes place is a healthy predation. And I even hesitate to use the word predator. It really is a balancing act. Jungles are lush. They're rich in diversity. They collaborate. I mean, I've got orchids growing on in the canopy of the jungle, and it's just a spectacular environment. I would much rather conduct business in a jungle than in a desert. And where we're at right now is a desertification of this planet in a lot of different ways through our business practices.
And there needs to be some kind, I guess, of even collaboration at a higher level of really entrepreneurs or people that are really the leaders to come in contact with each other, no?
Well, that goes to the way that a lot of my work is focused on leadership development. How do we develop leaders in organizations?
And what are leaders called to do these days? And
exactly.
What is the new definition of leadership?
Well, the way that we define leadership is pretty simple, actually. It's about leadership is the activity of creating coordinated movement in a system that produces the action that you need to get the result that you want. The key there is coordinated movement, which is a collaborative dynamic, and it speaks to, I need to know where you're at, what's important to you, how can I best collaborate with you, how can I best coordinate with you so that we're in a dance together. And it is a collaborative process, but it's collaborative in the sense that we're recognizing the whole, not just the small part that we're playing. I have to hear the music in order to dance with you, so I have to be aware of the music.
At all levels.
At all levels. At all levels.
So how do you start this whole process within the company? Does it start really with the CEO, or you can start at any level? How do you especially government, where does it start?
Government. Well, there's an interesting notion that conflict is necessary for action. And when we look around today, there's a lot of conflict. Politically, economically, there's just a lot of conflict. That's the bad news and the good news. The good news about conflict is it does provide an impetus for action. So, to answer the question, where do we start? It's at the point where there seems to be the most conflict, either in somebody's heart or mind, or actually in the system that we're called in to work with. It may be a growth conflict. What's the consequences of growing? Market discontinuity, or shift in markets, so we need to do something differently. But all of these things are conflicting in nature. And then, part of the conversation that we have is what's the collaboration, what's the coordinated movement that's going to be required in this conflict scenario, so that there's not a winner or loser. There are co-creators that are together moving the action forward.
I guess that the shift starts first in an individual before bringing everybody together, and tapping in that inner strength that you talk about.
There's, I collaborated on a book with a couple of guys that your viewers may know, Brian Tracy, Stephen Covey, and it was called Discover Your Inner Strengths. And one of the things that I contributed was a chapter that took a look at some of the nature's distinctions. The inner strengths, there's an old Buddhist tenet around levels of awareness. The one is, the peak is, we are all one, that there is nobody else out there but me. Below that, there is distinctions. Being able to make discernments around what it is that I'm noticing without judging it as good, bad, right or wrong, winning or losing. And that's the point where I think from a conversational standpoint, We create the possibility of coordinated movement. It's when I don't feel like I'm wrong. I'm willing to move with you. If you feel like you're wrong, you're going to resist, there's going to be a contraction, and all of that dynamic comes into play here. So part of our challenge is in working with our clients is how do we move them beyond the judgments that are so pervasive and into just an appreciation of the distinctions. You're moving this way. That's an interesting move. Why should I come with you? That's let me experience what that's about.
So it's more about looking at what's right about this instead of what's wrong.
It's more about actually, is this working or not working? And that's a semantical distinction, but it's one that tends to be values free. If I'm looking at right and wrong, there's a defensive posture that comes in or a dominant posture that can come in. If I'm simply looking at is this working or not working, that opens up a whole framework of possibilities for us to explore in terms of how we dance together, how we coordinate together.
But is that not working is pushing away a whole thing that could maybe something good in that?
It can be situational, but I mean, if I look at business in the way that it's conducted on the planet today, it may be working short term for a quarterly result, but is it working long term? Is it, my children's children, are they going to benefit from the decisions that I'm making today as a business? That's the kind of thinking that comes into play here when I start thinking in a more holistic way. And it's less about who's the... There's a point here around stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders that are invested in the success of the organization? And oftentimes, almost every time, I hear, well, there's trade-offs that need to be made. And that is, I think, a huge trap, because trade-offs gives me an easy out. It lets me favor one stakeholder over the other. It lets me favor my shareholders over the environment, as an example. If I can remove the idea of trade-offs from the conversation, there are no trade-offs. We are all in this together. This decision is going to have impact. Short-term or long-term, there's going to be impact. So let's not think about trade-offs. Let's think about what's a creative way that we can make this decision work, or a decision that is workable short-term and long-term. It forces us to be far more creative, far more creative.
How do you define success, and then what are some of the core values of successful businesses now in this new paradigm?
Well, personally for me, I define success at the end of my days. I feel, number one, fulfilled. I feel used up well. I feel like I was used well. I think I was used well. Businesses today, I think we need to transcend the metrics that we're using today as indicators of success. Return on investment, profitability. These are short-term metrics. What we need to be able to do is start moving beyond. Bhutan has got a happiness index. Why don't we have something like that for, this is altruistic, but how do we measure success as a business? Altruism has to enter into this in some shape. It has to. My company's name, Avatar Resources. Avatar, Sanskrit word, it means ideal in physical form. Every company was formed out of a dream at some point in time. And most companies begin to lose connection with that dream. And they begin to take shortcuts, and they begin to not do what they initially set out to do. Not necessarily in terms of making profit, but to create the dream. And a metric that measures how are we doing on the fulfillment of our dream. Because dreams are inclusive. By definition, dreams are inclusive.
Maybe some person at the top that don't want to hear about that dream anymore because they've created a new one. But
well, yeah, they may have a very self-centered dream. How much money is too much?
Is there some other things as part of this conversation around compassionate capitalism and what you're doing and what you're seeing out in the world and this paradigm shift? Is there something else that you would like to add that is important to say?
Well, I think it's important that every individual recognize that they make a difference. And that is more than just a nice soundbite. I make a difference in my family. I make a difference in the way that I move in the world. And collectively, when that's all aggregated, that's the difference that we end up seeing on the planet. It is about coordinated movement. How do I coordinate myself with the other sentient beings and the non-sentient beings on this thing that we occupy that we call home. It's got finite resources. We can't continue to consume in the way that we consume. Our economic model today is built on continuous consumption. That is not sustainable. There has to be a different way to approach how we do business and how we grow, quote unquote, grow our economies. What does growth look like? That, I think, has to be questioned. I mean, if I was to leave with anything on the table as a thought provoker, it is to question what we think we know about economic success, about life success. It's probably not long-term what we think it is.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
pleasure.
for taking the time. I look forward to interviewing your wife. That is absolutely amazing.
Oh, she's an amazing one. She's unstoppable. The unstoppable Cynthia Kersey.
Yeah.
She's got an incredible story to tell about what she's doing.
Yeah, and she's putting in place in Africa.
She's in place, and she just actually got back. She's got a foundation that develops sustainable villages in some of the remotest parts of Africa, around 5 fundamental pillars that she can talk about. But she just got back from Uganda and Kenya on this trip, and visiting the projects that we're working with over there.
What a beautiful couple there, transforming the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Big, big kisses, my delicious
Bye,
co-creators
guys.
from beautiful sunny San Diego. Woohoo!
Yes, helicopters and oceans.
All of it is there.
It's all here.
Big, big kiss. Bye.